Hello from Jonathan and from me. Welcome to Thursday's Anglia Tonight.
You will always be our hero, the tribute from a father to his soldier son buried on Remembrance Day. 24-year-old Acting Corporal David Barnsdale from Hertfordshire was killed while clearing landmines in Afghanistan. Today, as his family laid him to rest, the nation paid its own tribute to those who had died in war. Martin Stew has this report.
Many knew and loved him. Many more were strangers, simply there to pay their respects. The sight of Acting Corporal David Barnsdale's coffin being carried into church, a very real reminder of what Armistice Day means.
We as a family are just immensely proud of David's achievements, and he will never ever be forgotten. He will always be his mum's little puppet.
Corporal Barnsdale was killed in an explosion in Afghanistan 3 weeks ago. He was just 24.
One of the best, Corporal Barnsdale was a dedicated and brave individual. He will be missed by his regiment, by the Corps of Royal Engineers, and by all of those fortunate enough to have known him. He will never be forgotten.
The hundreds who have turned out here today in the wind and rain are testament to just how popular Acting Corporal David Barnsdale was. One friend described him as a man who could make friends in an empty room. Across the region, crowds gathered to remember the fallen. In Norwich, outside the newly refurbished War Memorial, used for the first time in 6 years.
We can't escape from the fact that people are still giving their lives in the service of others and for the sake of our freedom.
I lost comrades when I was in Malaya, and I'd like to remember them as well.
At 11 o'clock, as the bell struck, silence fell. Today, especially poignant for Stanley Smith from Bedford. The 90-year-old served with the Royal Navy in the Second World War. He made it his goal to see a permanent memorial built in his home village of Carlton.
Bombs that fall in the city and town leave holes in hearts as well as the ground.
The memorial dedicated by the Bishop of Bedford in a special service.
We dedicate this...
I served in the war, and I was in the Navy, and I lost shipmates, which I still think about. I'm very, very grateful to everybody who's helped, who's contributed. I'm 90 years of age, and I'm so pleased that I've got it before it's my time.
In Northampton, shoppers had their own reason for paying tribute.
My four uncles fought in the First World War, and one of them was killed there at the age of 21.
Well, a lot of them put their, give us their lives, you know, and my father did. Well, I'll follow in his footsteps.
My grandfather was in the war, obviously, and that's just why I just think there's no reason, there's no excuse not to respect those who have fought to keep us free.
In Wootton Bassett, crowds gathered to see a homecoming parade. Soldiers from 1 Squadron RAF regiment based from Honington in Suffolk were among them, before silence fell upon the town. David Barnsdale's body was laid to rest in a private family service this afternoon. His name, one of the latest on the list of those we must remember for paying the ultimate sacrifice.
Some fitting tributes there. Let's join Martin now, who's at Colchester Barracks. Martin, I understand that not all the Armistice Day events went quite as planned.
No, that's right, Becky, and ironically it happened here in Colchester, home of 16 Air Assault Brigade, who are currently serving in Afghanistan. Now, they were holding an 11 o'clock service of service of remembrance for soldiers and family, but there were a few timing issues, which meant when at 11 o'clock ITV's National News came to a live shot of the garrison here, the soldiers were standing at ease rather than standing to attention. Now, that's attracted a lot of talk today on social networking sites, and the commander here told me that they had taken their eye off the clock, but the reason was they wanted to wait until everybody who was meant to be at the service had arrived here. He went on to say in a statement, it is ridiculous to suggest that personnel from 16 Air Assault Brigade would intentionally disregard the 2-minute silence, especially when their comrades are fighting in Afghanistan, and they did hold a full 2-minute silence shortly after 11.
Martin, thanks for clarifying that situation there. Now, moving on to other news, Norfolk's fire chief has today been defending his controversial decision to ban any religious involvement from the brigade's Armistice Day service.
The ceremony went ahead this morning, but there were no prayers. Nigel Williams took the decision because he wants his fire service to be more secular.
Well, it provoked a big response from you last night. Today, the chief fire officer also found himself under attack from his own firefighters. Malcolm Robertson has more.
This is the man at the centre of the controversy, Norfolk Fire Chief Nigel Williams, during the brigade's Armistice Day ceremony. He broke with tradition by removing the religious element of the service, no prayers, no chaplain, a decision that hasn't gone down well.
I appreciate that some of you may be disappointed that the tradition of previous years has not been maintained.
Firefighters attending the nearby Remembrance service in the centre of Norwich said they were embarrassed by what had happened.
We didn't want people to think that was the firefights kicking off. That wasn't our decision. We had no point in the decision. It was senior officers and the chief.
Alan Womack's a retired firefighter who always attends the county's Armistice Day service. He told me he didn't like the new format, introduced because the chief said some members of staff felt uncomfortable about the religious aspect in the past.
Let's have a crack at that, you know, that really is ridiculous, really. Hopefully better next year.
Norfolk's longest-serving fire service employee spoke briefly before the 2-minute silence was observed.
Today, we come together to join in a simpler act of remembrance.
Since we broke the story last night, Nigel Williams has been under fire, although he says he's also had messages of support. Some of those on Norfolk County Council feel aggrieved they weren't told about the change.
I would have felt that we would have been consulted before such a decision was made. It seems that when people are doing remembrance services, there is that element of prayer, and it's something that if people don't like, they can opt out of.
Today, Norfolk's chief fire officer responded to the criticism and defended his decision.
We've enjoyed now a poignant service without this year having a chaplaincy. If I could assure the council, of course, we are a listening organisation. We'll listen to the views that are expressed to me and we'll reconsider how we do this next year. But what will happen, of course, there will be an act of remembrance next year. I think it was very moving and I think it touched just the right spot in that act of remembrance that we've had here helps us remember those who've gone before, who've laid their lives down and give them the freedoms that we enjoy today.
Having gone out on a limb, he's now under pressure to bring back the old-style service. Malcolm Robertson, Anglia News, Norfolk.
An investigation is underway after a fire at a former hotel in Hertfordshire. The alarm was raised at the disused Clock Hotel in Welwyn Garden City just after 2 o'clock this afternoon. Traffic on the nearby A1M was reduced to 20 miles an hour because of thick smoke.